liftoff. You're watching Spaceflight Now's coverage of the launch of Atlantis with Miles O'Brien, David Waters, and astronaut Leroy Chow.
Bob Crippen is with us, who was in April of 1981, sat beside John Young, a guy who spent a little bit of time on the moon, among other things,
Absolutely.
and flew on the Space Shuttle Columbia, the first flight of the Space Shuttle, and he joins us now representing the Coalition for Space Exploration, a group that is near and dear to my heart, and which is all about engaging the public on space, and who better to do that than you?
Well, I'm pleased to be part of the coalition, which, you know, Miles is a group of individuals and companies that really feel strong about our exploration initiative, and we want to make sure that it continues. Obviously, that one's a little bit up in the air right now. We're depending on the administration to decide what's going to happen in the future.
You know, we're waiting. It's like we're waiting for Godot here. You know, it's not good. I don't like this period of no answer. Now, granted, here we have Leroy, who was on the Augustine Commission.
Yeah, one of those guys.
Presented a bill of particulars, very clear-cut choices. What was your expectation, Leroy, as to when we would hear? And, you know, I'm curious if you guys are antsy.
We all thought that we would hear by now. We
Yeah.
really did. We thought that frankly, we thought that our report release and the announcements of the decisions from the administration would coincide within, probably within a couple of weeks, you know, because we had briefed the White House on August 14th, and so they had the options, the results, and, you know, the final report didn't come out until, you know, late October. And so we thought by then they would have had time to go through and make their decisions. But as you see, as you've said, they're still pondering.
Pondering is not good, is it, Bob Crippen? We don't need to be pondering. I mean, we're talking about a 5, 6, maybe 7-year gap here.
Right.
Mind the gap. I don't like that kind of thing, because we're talking about engaging a young generation under that tent that are twittering like crazy and love space, but there's not going to be any U.S. space missions. The space station will be going on, but they'll be flying out of Kazakhstan for a long time. What do we do about that?
I wish I knew the answer to that. Obviously, the administration's got a number of things on its plate, and this hasn't worked its way up in its priority list, but it is very unsettling, not only to people like us that support the program, but the people like here at the Kennedy Space Center that are working on it. They're wondering what their future is going to be, and that's not good to have people that are doing critical things like flying the shuttle worrying about their future job.
Well, it seems to me, I mean, I know for a fact that the most important thing NASA needs to do, above and beyond, and I know this comes from the White House, is to engage the public and inspire another generation. That's probably the #1 mission.
Yep.
And where you go, whether it's the moon or Mars or an asteroid, really is secondary, I think, to engaging the public. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, I'm not sure.
You really?
I'm not sure.
Tell me. Tell me what you think.
I think engaging the public and inspiring our young people about science and engineering and math is extremely important. But I also think maintaining our leadership in this country, in this world, is extremely important. You know, China's pushing in space, India's pushing, Russia's continuing to push.
Right.
And I would put that myself a little higher on the priority list.
All right, that's point well taken. Point well taken, because there is the geopolitical implications here. But let me ask you this: we know China. Leroy goes over there quite frequently.
Well, actually, I was just there a couple weeks ago.
Just there, and they are. You know, it's interesting. They think about the world in a different time increments than we do, right? Yes. We've got 2-year cycles here for politicians.
Right.
They think in terms of centuries. You know, I mean, really, it's just a different context of history. When you talk to them, they don't seem to be in a hurry to do whatever they're doing in space, but they want to do it right, and they want to continue in a steady way, right?
That's right. Accurate? You're right. I mean, the cultural tendency is to think in a longer term. I mean, look at the Great Wall, for goodness sake, how long that took to build. But you're right. They have taken very measured steps. They're not launching very frequently. They've only had 3 manned flights, but on each one they made steady improvements and demonstrated a new capability. And their next crewed flight is not scheduled till it's 2011. It may have slipped a little bit to 2012. I'm not sure. But they're going to test their automatic rendezvous system on their next couple of flights, and they'll test them unmanned first, and then they'll do it manned.
Well, so you know, you got to ask yourself, frankly, what would be the best thing for NASA is if China stepped it up, right? Because it would get people's attention and say, wait a minute, we don't want the Chinese surpassing us in space, right?
It would help. It wouldn't be the same kind of drive that I think we had back in the 70s when Kennedy gave us the goal to go to the moon. We were worried about our security at that particular point. I don't think that's the primary issue.
It's a different era.
Yeah, it is a different era. But the Chinese technically are really progressing very fast.
Well, here now, and let's throw in another country into the mix. India. India
Another up and
is
comer. Yeah.
Right?
This is a country with I believe the per capita annual income is $800 on average,
Right.
and this is a country that has decided it can afford a space program, and would like to have a manned or piloted space program, for a politically correct term.
Yes.
And yet, in this country, what we hear people say is we can't afford it. Does that make any sense to you?
Not to me, but to some people it does. You know, really, the amount of money that we spend on our space program, on the human space program, is like half a cent out of every federal dollar. And
That's what we spend on coffee every year.
easy.
Okay?
You spend more than
We spend a latte on space.
Right. And so it's important for us, that's part of the reason I'm in the coalition, and you and Lou, let's continue to try to get that message out, how important it is to the future of this country.
When you think about $18 billion spent on NASA, of course there's more money spent on the military side, but that's a separate issue because that's national defense issues, separate thing. 18 billion bucks in the grand scheme, that is a fraction of the Bernie Madoff Ponzi scheme.
Oh,
Right?
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, when people say it's too expensive, they're just not informed.
Well, people have a hard time with the concept of $1 billion. You know that.
Well, that's true.
It's trying to get your mind.
But they're learning more and more about it these days.
You know, we have a lot of money coming out of Washington right now to stimulate the economy, to get jobs out there, and we're talking about a lot of high-tech jobs when we talk about the space program.
Well, and let's bring that full circle, because what people say, they always say, well, we don't want to spend all the money in space. When you went up in STS-1, were there a bunch of $100 bills in the back of the Columbia that you jettisoned out?
all of the work on the space shuttle is spent here in the United States. It's on jobs.
Yes.
It's on jobs.
Yes.
It's very little on hardware and fuel compared to the total thing. And,
all right. See, all these things make a lot of sense to me, but of course we're preaching to the choir here. So, how can the coalition get the public back in the game?
I wish I knew the answer to that.
Well, let me ask you this, and this is a tough question because I know you were there at the beginning. Did the shuttle program tune people out, in a sense?
Initially, I don't think that the media, the press, the people paid that much attention to it while we were in the process of getting ready to fly. But we had some sad things happen back in the 70s. Those were not good times. You know, we had all of the hostages over in Iran, and when we flew the shuttle for the first time, I didn't realize it, but it really inspired the American public.
It was a triumph.
It was a big triumph, and not only here in the United States, but around the world, because John and I did a lot of those cheering. I would like to see that kind of excitement, but the people are kind of fickle sometimes if it's not today's news.
Well, you want to hear my theory?
What's your theory?
Here's my theory. I think the big misstep in the shuttle program was NASA trying to tell people this is going to be routine. Don't tell them it's routine. Tell them it's risky.
Right.
Then they're with you, right? It is risky. You flew the riskiest test mission ever.
Yeah, that was
untested ever, never flown before. You strapped yourself in that thing. Never told the astronaut too much. That was on a need-to-know basis. They strapped you in there. You had an ejection seat, which
wouldn't have done anything.
You didn't want to use,
you know. Right in the plume, right? You would have done nothing. It's the last thing you would have done.
That ejection seat was a placebo.
And that thing had never been tried before. It actually, you went higher, farther than you were supposed to. There were a lot of things that were unknown, and that was cool. But then they set about the business of explaining to people, hey, this is going to be just like flying airliners.
And that was wrong. And obviously we've proven that several times over now. But that was the only thing that sold the program at that particular juncture.
I know, that's the problem.
And that was the problem. And people oversold it, obviously.
Yeah. To sell it to Congress, you had to say it's going to be routine.
Right.
To sell it to the public, you should have said, hey, this is right on the bleeding edge, folks.
Yep. And, you know, the Department of Defense back at that time was a big part of why we had the shuttle. It actually drove the design, the shape of the wings, the size of the cargo bay. And after we lost Challenger, they bailed out on the program, which didn't help.
So you're left with this vehicle that was all set to do was to put up spy satellites, have now that cross-range capability, launch from Vandenberg, all kinds of capability you didn't need. Well, all I can say is this: let's go someplace and let's go someplace
Let's
soon.
do it. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Let's
I'm
light this
for it.
can on. He's
Agree on
tanned
that.
and rested and ready for any mission. He's always available. No
Good.
problem. Bob Crippen, always a pleasure.
Thank you,
nice
Miles.
to see you,
Thank you,
Coalition for
Leroy.
Space Exploration. We appreciate it.